Hey everybody, Rudros here, and I wanted to take a little time to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind for a while, and I wanted to make a video about. I'll be honest, I wanted to make this a fancier video with effects and, hoopla, magic lights, all that stuff. No, I really wanted to put a lot of effects into this one, but I just don't have the time these days. Work has really picked up for me, but I still wanted to get the video out, get something out for you, especially since Pixelborn's down, but just something I've kind of thought about since mainly set 1, but it's really increased over set 4, and that's just steel as an ink color, and why I think it's so strong, and why I'm asking the developers, please quit buffing steel, because it feels like there's somebody on the developer team really loves steel, and it continues to get not only it continues to get a lot of effects. So I went through every single steel card there was, and I counted up all the different effects that the ink color has, and I came up with about 23 total, so I'm going to rattle them off really quickly. So here's all things some steel cards can do. Yeah, they have the ability, steel has the ability to banish items. It has draw power. Sometimes it's direct draw, sometimes it's draw then discard. It has, of course, direct damage. That's one we all know about, which can hit characters and locations. It has resist as a keyword. It has cards that give you extra lore. It has bodyguard. It can free play characters. There's cards that buff attack power. There's the challenger keyword. It has evasive, usually not on your opponent's turn, but it has the ability to gate evasive to at least attack evasive characters, so it's not like that's something that's locked out of Steel's repertoire. It can challenge ready characters. It has the ability to make it so your characters can't be challenged in return. It has direct banish for a location. It's got, of course, your board-wide damage with things like Grab Your Sword, Tinkerbell Mob Song. It even has a card that gets around ward, technically, in Triton's Decree. And it can ready characters with cards like Hades, Pyros, Queen of Hearts, and it has location movement reduction. Technically, there's a taunt card with the beast that can take damage for other cards. Tiana can block actions, and Whole New World is really its own effect. Plus, even the hook from set 1 has the ability to recur cards in the form of grab your cannons, or fire the cannons, not grab your sword. Combine grab your sword, grab your cannons. That sounds like a fun card name. Anyway, let's go into these a little more. So, banishing an item. This has been in Steel since day 1. I have to admit, I think this has always felt like a Ruby effect, as Ruby seems to have the power that just direct banish, right? Steel's removal has always been based on dealing damage through willpower, so I deal you 4 damage or 5 damage, whereas Ruby just says, no, just essentially just break it outright, just banish it, get rid of it regardless of willpower. But Steel has had banish items since set 1 in both Break and Beast. Beast has actually made a bit of a comeback, and originally Benja in set 2 just kind of completely replaced him just because he was a cheaper version of him, but these two cards are very good, and these illustrate something I think Steel does very well compared to other ink colors, that this break action has always been around, but no one ever really used it. Why? Because you can get the same effect on a body, and when you can get an effect on a character versus just on an action or a song or an item, it's almost universally stronger, because almost always that character is also going to have lore attached to it. So once it's done its job of breaking the item, the beast can then continue to put on pressure either by challenging something with his 4 attack or questing for 2 lore. 2 things that are going to help you win the game, either slowing your opponent down or progressing your own win condition, whereas this break action, it just, you use it and then it's done. That's it. It did its one thing and it's done, whereas, Beast and Benja and Aladdin say, oh, actually, no, I'm going to keep threatening pressure. Aladdin, I mean, what a card that this is, that every turn it can banish an item. Rise of the Titans, too, the versatility of this, that it can banish either an item or location. So most decks are usually running one or the other, but it's inkable. All of these item breaking effects are completely inkable. So you can use, if it's not the right matchup, if you happen to be facing someone who isn't running an item, you can just ink all of these cards at their absolute worst. That's very strong. Versus, look what's in the other colors. Now, I do think there's maybe 1 or 2 things missing, because I know there's a purple Pinocchio that returns the item to their hand, but it doesn't just permanently gets rid of it, just temporarily moves it back, and I think it only hits 2 or 3 cost items anyway. But look at what these other colors have. So first of all, Amber has absolutely nothing, nor does Ruby. Ruby, the banishing ink, doesn't have anything to deal with items. So you can play this Magicka Dispel, wait an entire turn to this character's... Yeah, and it has this big condition on it as well, and you have to wait a turn. Right, so that's not very efficient. Make the potion, I mean, is okay. It's a straight banish in emerald, but it's also a 2-cost uninkable. So, and the other effect is like damaging damage stuff is, again, it pales in comparison to Steel's ability to just, well, no, I'm just going to damage whatever I want, not damage a damage thing. So this is technically direct removal in Emerald, but again, it's on a 2-cost uninkable versus the Steel cards, which are all completely... Yeah, compare that to Break. Break just says banish a chosen item, and it's inkable, versus Make the Potion. Now, you argue, okay, well, Make the Potion has the other effect, but that's night and day. And no one even used Break, and Break was the inkable version. Wildcat is okay. Again, he has to wait a whole turn, and then he's got to exert, so he's not progressing your win condition by doing that, versus something like Benja, for the same cost, immediately breaks it on play, and then is threatening 2 lore. Like, what a big difference. You can use Has Set My Heart. This one is essentially, this is basically just Break, right? Yeah, 2 cost, except it's singable. So arguably, this is a better Break. Usually, green isn't wanting to go after items, which is why out of these 3, the only one I ever really see is Wildcat. Glean is kind of interesting. What I do like about Glean is that you can banish your own items and gain lore off of it, but using this on your opponent's items, I don't think you just want to be giving them lore. I don't think you want to be pushing them towards your own win condition. I actually prefer Judy, because I would much rather have them draw a card than get 2 lore to help them get towards their win condition. And again, Judy is on a body. So Judy, very similar to Benja, comes down for 3, is the exact same stat-wise as Benja, same questing, same everything. But she draws a card off of it, or your opponent draws a card. So she does have that bit of a downside to it, but she can also be used on her own items. And then launch, it's a 3-cost uninkable action. So again, a few elements or inks don't even have ways to deal with item, and the other ones that do, some of these are okay, but they all pale in comparison to just the incredible item removal that Steel has. So something Steel also has, and this has always been baffling to me since set 2, is the keyword resist, which just says they take less damage from all sources. All sources. So challenges, direct damage through actions, direct damage through abilities like Tinkerbell's effect, all sources, they take less damage. And I find it very strange that this protection effect is in Steel, because Steel is also the only ink color that frequently just deals direct damage. So it's protecting against itself, which is very strange. Like in other card games, I can't think of any other color that the answer to it is itself, that it protects against itself. It's very weird. Yeah, so when you're facing Steel, if you're in a Steel matchup, these resist cards are so effective because, well, you know they don't have any direct way to banish characters. They have to do everything through damage. And if you're resisting damage, then they can't do anything. Like, I actually kind of like the idea of Steel, which I wish had been called Diamond, the idea of it being a protection effect, because we'll see up here later, too, they also have Bodyguard. So I like the idea, and this Hercules right here has Bodyguard. But it's so strange to me that the very element that deals damage, so to protect from that, you have to run that same element so it like outs itself in a way. That's very strange. Usually you would want something like, okay, well, Amber is the protection element, which actually kind of fits with that, given that it has support and healing and Bodyguard as well. So I wonder if Resist really should have gone to something like Amber, and then, oh, Steel's really popular in the meta, so let's run Amber to kind of counter it. Because historically in the meta for Lorcana, for the short time it's even been around, the top decks have one of 2 features. Either they have heavy removal, or they go so fast that the removal doesn't matter. If you think of what have been the premier decks, Sapphire Ruby. Ruby's a big removal color. Ruby Sapphire, big removal color. Sapphire Steel, big removal. Amber Steel, big removal. Green Steel is a big one right now. Steel has all the removal. The green is what goes fast and does the discard, and the Steel provides all the removal. So the only decks that have really shown up in the past beyond that is stuff that goes so fast it doesn't matter. But once you get into those 6-7 inks, you have to have removal effects. So yeah, I've never liked that Resist is in the very same element that it's supposed to protect against. What's Resist for? Oh, to protect against all that Steel. Oh, nice. What ink is that in? Yeah, it's in Steel. So you have to play Steel to protect against Steel. And it creates this cycle of strength and Steel that, yeah, okay, you're protecting against Steel, you have to play Steel, because that's why Ruby is strong and why Blue-Red is so much stronger in the late game versus Blue-Gray, although Blue-Gray has been closing the gap lately, because Red just says, okay, I don't care how much damage you resist, just die. Just go away with the Be Prepared, go away with, Dragon Fire, Melissa Dragon, whatever. Something I find insanely baffling with Steel is that it has character free play. You can just play a character for free. Not only this Mickey Mouse Trumpeter, there's the new Kronk card that got revealed for set 5 coming out that I think when it banishes something, you can play a character for free. Why is that a thing? Character reduction and cheating things into play should be an Amber effect. You have Gaston and Max and Chernobog. Perdita cheats things into play. Pluto makes things cheaper. Heart of Atlantis. What was the other one? Lantern, Just in Time. Like, cheating things into play is clearly Amber's thing. You have Mufasa too. Why does Steel have, it makes no sense for Steel to have this effect, and this is my issue with this ink color, is that it's copying the effects of other inks far too much. Like, why does the heavy removal element that also has a lot of other effects also get to play characters for free? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And again, they showed with the new Kronk, this is probably something they're going to keep printing for the ink color as well. Challenger, of course, an insanely strong keyword. Only Steel and Amethyst, weirdly, have Challenger. This one I think does fit Steel a lot because it's supposed to be the attack removal element, but it just shows it's another effect that Steel has. Here's another one with Evasive. We also have Bodyguard. It's only 2 colors have Bodyguard, which is Amber and Steel. And most bodyguards don't see a ton of play, so clearly this is just, I don't know, is the effect too weak, or is it only affects challenging, right? So if they have spot removal, then it kind of doesn't matter. But again, it's this protection effect, which does seem to make sense for Amber. I'm not sure it makes sense for Steel, and especially when you can have bodyguards with resist. And here you have all your direct damage abilities. Like, a lot of these are unlinkable, but look at all these cards and how much of them see play. Avalanche is kind of up in the air, but it's been coming into favor just because of locations. One Last Hope, unfortunately, isn't very good. I haven't seen many people use Mob Song. Triton's Decree can technically out of Bucky. Along Came Zeus, Ba-Boom, Storm Rage On, Strength of a Raging Fire, Fire the Cannons, Grab Your Sword, Smash. All of these have seen significant play, either currently or in their time. Some of them, like Storm, are tied to card draw as well, which is very weird. Zeus can hit characters or locations, so he's very versatile. Ba-Boom's been very favored lately just because it's inkable. Yeah, it's one more than cannons, but and it can shoot locations. Like, Grab Your Sword, one of what? There's only 2 board-wide effects currently, right? It's Grab Your Sword and Be Prepared. Technically, I guess there's something like Under the Sea, but that requires a kind of some conditions to really go off, whereas Grab Your Sword, Be Prepared, say, hey, just do this thing, you're done. So yeah, clearly the direct damage is very, very powerful for Steel, and we know it's going to continue to get a bunch of these direct damage effects, and some of them are inkable, some of them draw, like, these have all been very, very strong. And this I'm kind of okay with, because this seemed like what Steel's identity should be, so these ones I understand, but all these cards are very good, and if you look at the other ink colors, they have a lot of actions and songs that just aren't very strong. And finally, and arguably this is the most damning of all, is the card draw that Steel has access to. If I type in Steel and the word draw on Dreamborn, keep in mind this isn't covering everything, but this is 19 unique cards come up, 19. And this is a removal element. If I do the same thing with Ruby, 5 cards come up. And look at the difference of these, that this one, it has to not only has to be your turn, and it has to die in a challenge. This one is just, well, it can just challenge. This one is ready a chosen damage character of yours, then it can draw. This one you have to lose a character to do it. Again, they all have these super conditions versus look at what Steel has. A lot of this, some of these are challenge related, this one banishes another challenge. You get to draw a card. Fortisphere is just a popsicle copy for some reason. Robin Hood, if he dies in a challenge, either way, not just if he dies while challenging, if they challenge him and he dies, he gets to draw a card, unequivocal card draw. They started off with cards similar to Ariel, Cinderella, Simba, where it was a draw and then it was a discard effect. And I thought that was kind of neat because it was different from Amethyst straight draw, but it's just so weird to have draw in a removal element. If you look at other games, like look at Magic the Gathering, the element of fire, which is very removal heavy, tends to not draw a lot of cards. Like, and anytime they do, it's always in this weird, like, well, you can exile them and then use them that turn and then they go away. Look at a card like the Beast. The Beast just straight draws a card every turn if he doesn't have any damage on him. Jafar, anytime he kills something, straight draw a card. Storm Rage on, just a straight draw card. I mean, you don't see it anymore, but back in set 1, I actually thought Beast Mirror was pretty solid as like Steel's way of answering the Magic Mirror, you know, where, hey, at least it was some kind of draw. So, like, I don't understand why a removal element has such good card draw, and you can see this other removal element doesn't. It's very limited. A lot of it's very conditional, whereas Steel has insane card. Like, why? Why does this removal element have access to such good card draw? And I think part of the issue is they've gotten to this point in Lorcana as a whole, as a game. They realize how important card draw is, and so they've started jamming card draw into Sapphire with the Popsicle Flaversome engine and Emerald, because in set 1, really only Amethyst could do it effectively, with a few exceptions, you know, like Amber, Rapunzel, etc. And so they're like, oh, I guess everything needs card draw. Let's jam it in there. And, of course, this card deserves its whole own section. Whole New World is just insane. The one of the heaviest removal elements in the game, with all these other effects, has the ability to completely not only replenish your hand, it can be sung, and it can mess up your opponent's hand. And you've seen games won on stream at some of these challenges where someone did such an early Whole New World, they completely ruined the nice curve out that their opponent had, and then refilled their own hand. And then, ironically, makes this random alternate win condition. Sometimes you can just win by milling their deck out. Like, why is this in Steel? I mean, I don't really like this card, period, and there's a lot I could say more just on this one, but I don't understand why Steel has this effect. So, anyway, that's my point for the day. I just think Steel has too many effects as an ink color. I would really like to see them reined in. You know, if it wants to be the strong removal element that's based on direct damage, that's fine. I have no issue with that, but please quit giving it so many other random effects that just like, yeah, someone on the team absolutely loves Steel, so I would love to see that change. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you also think Steel just has way too many good effects? Is there a particular card I didn't even mention that really bugs you? Or are you of the opposite? You're like, meh, I like it. I just like using all that stuff. So appreciate you watching. Till next time, take care.